Episode 4 of Kingdom picks up where the last one left off, whereby we saw Matima and Alimba having a fight. As with the other cliffhangers, this gets resolved pretty much instantly. Matima basically leaves the territory and has to find a new one. We get a bit more of the leopards, I think, in this episode than we did the last few. Not just Matima, but Alimba as well. We kind of highlight how old Alimba is. Like, she's actually a really old leopard. You didn't really realise that from the last few, but Matima's realistically her last cub. And as the episode goes on, we see her patrolling her territory. She's trying to chase baboons, but she's not really successful, and like loads of animals around her aren't really bothering with her in the same way they would if she was younger. And it alludes to her possibly dying soon. We don't actually see her dead by the end of the episode, but maybe by next episode she'll be gone, I don't know. But no, it's quite sad. She was kind of the main character from the very first episodes. Matima continues to get the bulk of the leopard storyline. We see her looking for another territory. We see she finds one. She tries to hunt some baboons, not so successful. However, we see she tries the same thing again at night and actually manages to catch one. This is kind of similar to the sequence we got in Mammals, though that was obviously a lot more in depth. This is, kind of brief. But we see that there's another leopard already in that territory that has a fight with her and kind of chases her out. I think her hunting the baboons wasn't quite as good as what we got in Mammals, but that bit at the end with the other leopard really helped to elevate that, I think. I kind of wonder if Alimba goes. Maybe she'll take over her territory, I don't know. We'll see, but that could be interesting for next episode. We get a lot less of the hyenas as well in this episode. Tandala comes back, that's fine. And we see the hyenas taking on the lions at night. Also in thermal imaging, we see Tenta calling to other hyenas, which is something we see. We see that a lot in these series. I don't think we got as much of an in-depth look. They're just going right to the ground to help amplify their call. That was interesting, I didn't really know about that. And that's something you see all the time in these series, but you don't really ever see that side of things. And they obviously managed to drive the lions off. We don't get much more of that particular clan of hyenas. Hyenas do pop up around the episode, usually in a villainous role. Maybe it is the same hyenas and they just don't want to say it's the ones we're following because we want them to be the good guys. I don't know. It's very easy, as I've said before, to villainize hyenas, and they do go out their way not to do that, at least with the ones we're following. So I don't know, maybe it is them, I don't know. But no, there are hyenas throughout this episode, taking on the wild dogs, the lions. Speaking of wild dogs, Storm's pack manages to come back. They kind of resume the dominance they had before. The lions aren't really as big a threat and they kind of get pushed to the margins. They're not really in this episode much either, to be fair. It's very much the wild dogs. And the wild dogs are actually really cool in this episode. I really like them. There's a new wild dog called Flint who's missing a leg that he caught in a poacher's trap. He basically becomes the protagonist of the episode, I would say. He's the one you root for. Just the fact that he's got, something that's debilitating him makes you really care about him, I think, and he's great throughout the episode. And this episode makes the wild dogs really sympathetic. I mean, they were sympathetic in episode 2. They're even more so now because we see them looking after Flint. The fact that he can't really hunt with them would make him seem to be a liability, but no, they wait for him, they give him as much food, and he helps look after the pups. I think it's really good. It just shows you the sort of community. I think people like dogs in general because there's that pack mentality and we kind of like to idolise that. And I think this episode does a really good job of highlighting that. And we see that Storm's had more pups as well. There's a lot more of them actually. And they all survive by the end of the episode, so, good stuff. And we see the wild dogs get together to chase off a hyena and a leopard. That was a good sequence. You don't normally see those three animals interacting at all. But this hyena's feeding on a carcass. The wild dogs are able to drive it off and also do the same with the leopard. And it's quite a big leopard as well. I think the hyena would normally be seen as the, bigger threat because it's obviously got, bone-crushing jaws. But the leopard seemed pretty intimidating, I think, in this episode. The hyena kind of just backed off. The leopard did seem a little bit like it, it could do more damage. The best part of the episode, though, was the bit with the crocodile. Flint basically gets dragged in the water by a crocodile, and it looks like, he's going to die. What I will say here is on BBC iPlayer, they've started naming the episodes like kind of silly names. This one was called Flint and the Crocodile. So that was basically a bit of a spoiler. So, thanks for that, BBC. Good job. And it looks like all hope's lost. The crocodile's got out of the water. However, he's able to still get some breath because it's just shallow enough. So the crocodile can't do his usual death roll. And it's not actually a massive crocodile, but, big enough to still do some damage. What's interesting here is that you'd assume the wild dogs would just kind of leave him to it, like what could they do? But no, they actually get in the water and try and drag him out. That was really cool. That was the best example of them showing this pack spirit that they really, really hammered home in this episode. I thought that was really good. And they do manage to get him out, which is great. However, he's just so badly wounded that he ultimately dies anyway. It's pretty sad, I will say. There's no cub deaths in this episode, which is, a nice change. But the fact that you really did end up caring about Flint made it really sad when he died. I kind of thought we'd maybe see more of him in the next episode because he was kind of the main character of the episode. And unfortunately, that's not the case. So the wild dog stuff was really good in this episode. I would say that was the best they've been throughout the series. And we also get a bit of the lions. We see the lionesses are no longer the main force here. The wild dogs have definitely taken that on. But they're able to recruit 2 new males in, which is interesting. And we see by the end of the episode, they've got new cubs now. In fact, every single female's got cubs, which is, pretty impressive. So maybe we'll see them try and regain their footing as the dominant presence. Maybe we'll see them clash with the wild dogs more in the next episode. I don't know. That is the last one. But we see at the end of the episode, obviously there's a cliffhanger and it looks like some wildfires coming in and that's just kind of it. May get resolved pretty quickly, I don't know. Part of me is holding up that it will be pretty impressive, but realistically, I know in my heart that it will not be. So yeah, this episode is good. It's pretty good. I will say this is definitely the wild dog episode. The hyenas and the lions don't have as much to do. The leopards still do. The leopards have a fair bit to do, I think. But the wild dogs are definitely the main focus here. And I don't think I have a problem with that because the wild dogs were great. I thought Flint was great, and I look forward to where they go in the next episode, the final one. So yeah, what did you think of this episode? What were your highlights? Which storyline are you caring about the most? Let me know in the comments below. And yeah, I'll be doing the next one next time, so look forward to that. And yeah, as ever, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, or don't if you don't want to. It's perfectly fine. And I'll see you next time, and goodbye.